On March 31st, 1985, Vince McMahon presented what was to that point his greatest gamble, the first WrestleMania. As the then World Wrestling Federation continued to swell through national expansion, a colourful and charismatic world champion, and a mainstream link-up with Cyndi Lauper and MTV, McMahon put all of his eggs into the WrestleMania basket, staging a monumental card one early spring Sunday afternoon at Madison Square Garden in New York City. To call the event a success would be an understatement. More than 1 million Americans witnessed the show through closed-circuit airings across the country, and the event would prove to be a colossal moneymaker, the financial risk taken by McMahon proving to be a worthwhile one. And although WrestleMania 1 may not hold up quality-wise to many of their later incarnations, it still did what it needed to do: entertain legions of fans that could not get enough of the rock and wrestling output. In all, 22 individuals wrestled that afternoon inside the Garden across 9 matches. Let's take a look back at those grapplers from a bygone era, the populace of the pomp and circumstance that was the original WrestleMania. Mason Ryan, Stevie Ray, Earthquake, Alundra Blaze, Norman Smiley, Zach Gowen, Bam Bam Bigelow, Ahmed Johnson, Tory Wilson, Buff, Bagwell, Robert Gibson, Dave Taylor, Terry Taylor, and Godfather's Holmes. Dwayne Gill, Adam Bomb, Michael Hayes, Cor Von, S.A. Rios, Jim Manai, the manager from Kai and Tai, Jim Powers, Francine, Jack Swagger, Mean Gene, Fat Chick Thriller, Duke the Dumpster, Oklahoma Manta. What happened to that wrestler? Some were main eventing, which leaves me lamenting. What happened to that wrestler? Some since long forgotten, but their memories live on. The Executioner. Masked men bearing generic handles have been a staple of pro wrestling for eons, and many of them were about as memorable as The Last Sunset. The Executioner seen at WrestleMania 1 was only a small part of the career of the man who portrayed him, Playboy Buddy Rose. Rose gained far more notoriety in other parts of his brilliant career, particularly in Portland and in the AWA. Rose would return to WWE in 1990, using his large frame in a memorable comedy role. The real-life Paul Pershman would pass away from natural causes in April 2009, aged 56. Tito Santana. At this stage of the game, Santana was entrenched in the company's upper mid-card and in between reigns as Intercontinental Champion. On this night, Santana would vanquish the Executioner via submission in about 5 minutes, in what would turn out to be the only main-card WrestleMania victory in Santana's career. The future El Matador would pop up later in the card, playing a role in the finish of the evening's IC title match. Today, Santana still pops up at the odd independent show, primarily in the northeastern US, while also serving as a Spanish teacher at Eisenhower Middle School in Roxbury Township, New Jersey, where he's also the school's basketball coach. SD Jones. Special Delivery Jones would become infamous for the result of his lone WrestleMania match, losing in a mere 23 seconds. The timekeeper said it was only 9 seconds, but that's because his WWE Network feed was lagging. Although Jones had a 20-year career between the ropes, most of his fame harkens back to this very fast loss at the inaugural WrestleMania. After retiring in the early 90s, Jones took a job at the New York Daily News and popped up once more in WWE in 2006, inducting Tony Atlas into the Hall of Fame. 2 years later, Conrad Ephraim would pass away from a stroke in his native Antigua, aged 63. King Kong Bundy. The beneficiary of the abbreviated match with Jones was the mammoth Bundy, who flattened his much smaller foe with corner charges and an emphatic big splash, avalanching the two into the record books for different reasons. Bundy would go on to headline WrestleMania the following year against Hulk Hogan and gained further pop culture acclaim for appearances in the Richard Pryor film Moving and several times on American sitcom Married with Children. Bundy retired from the ring in 2007, but continued to make convention appearances until his death in March 2019. Matt Bourne. At this stage of his career, Bourne was little more than a preliminary WWE wrestler and had only debuted with the company 4 weeks before WrestleMania. Bourne would gain much more fame in different parts of his career, as part of the Rat Pack in Mid-South Wrestling with Jim Duggan and Ted DiBiase, a main event star in his local Portland wrestling territory, and as the original and by far best incarnation of the insidious Doink the Clown. Bourne would reprise the Doink role on the independent scene, using it up until his death in June 2013 from a drug overdose, aged 55. Ricky Steamboat. Like Bourne, Steamboat had only debuted mere weeks before WrestleMania, having only just wrestled regularly for Mid-Atlantic throughout February 1985. Steamboat's awing grace and flawless execution made him a bona fide star, and WWE fans got a small taste of what the Dragon brought to the table when he dispatched Bourne in a solid 5-minute bout. After a career marked by brilliance, Steamboat retired due to back injuries in 1994, but would continue to stay involved with the business. For a time, Steamboat worked for WWE as a producer, developmental trainer, and occasional guest referee in house show bouts, and remains an ambassador with the promotion today. Brutus Beefcake. The Barbashears were still 2 years away from making their way into Beefcake's midst, so for a time, Beefcake played what amounted to a sinister male stripper, managed by unrepentant loudmouth Johnny Valiant. Later on in 1985, Beefcake would win the WWE World Tag Team titles with Dream Team partner Greg Valentine, the first among numerous milestones that would eventually propel Beefcake into the upper card, before the tragic parasailing accident in 1990 derailed his career and nearly killed him. Still making wrestling appearances in semi-retirement, Beefcake has penned his highly entertaining career memoirs, Struttin' and Cuttin', which was released in early 2018. David Sammartino. One of the more notable cases of a second or third generation wrestler failing to even sniff the greatness of their famed parent, Sammartino would come nowhere close to the iconography of his father, the living legend Bruno Sammartino. Bruno accompanied David for his match against Beefcake that afternoon in the Garden, a bout that ended in a double disqualification. The younger Sammartino's push would dissipate by the end of 1985, though he would wrestle sporadically with the company into early 1988. Sammartino all but retired from wrestling in the mid-90s, save for the occasional indie appearance, and works today as a personal trainer. Greg Valentine. The Hammer was the reigning Intercontinental Champion at the time of WrestleMania, having won the gold from Santana in September 1984. He would hold the belt until July 1985, losing it back to Santana in a thrilling steel cage match in Baltimore. Valentine would remain a reliable fixture on WWE programming into 1992, having played a part in each of the first 7 WrestleManias. Today, in his late 60s, Valentine still steps into the ring on occasion, still recognized by his long blonde hair that makes him look like an older Dolph Ziggler. Junkyard Dog. One of the most memorable and charismatic stars of the time was the raspy-voiced, always upbeat Dog, whose cheerfully boisterous demeanor was as memorable as his 2 time-tested theme songs, Another One Bites the Dust, and later, Grab Them Cakes. Dog defeated Valentine by countout after a restart to their IC title match, but sadly would not win the gold. JYD would never quite see the same heights in a WWE ring, regressing further into the mid-card before leaving the company in 1988. JYD would wrestle in WCW and various indies into the mid-90s before tragically passing away in a car accident in June 1998. The real-life Sylvester Ritter was just 45. Barry Windham. Windham never really seemed to stay in one place for an extended period, but during a 1-year tenure with the WWE in 1984 to 85, he would hold the company's tag team belts on 2 occasions, winning them alongside Mike Rotunda for the first time in January 1985. Windham departed from the promotion that fall and would seemingly jump back and forth between NWA WCW and WWE with fair regularity up until the late 90s. In 2011, Windham was laid up in a hospital by a massive heart attack, which weakened the left side of his body so severely that he had to relearn how to walk. Now recovered, Windham runs his own home and business inspection company in Brooksville, Florida. Mike Rotunda. Windham's partner was none other than his real-life brother-in-law Rotunda, the future Erwin R. Shyster. Together, the bright-eyed, technically gifted Grapplers were known as the US Express, and were seconded by Captain Lou Albano. After Windham's departure that fall, Rotunda would kick around in the lower card, reforming the Express with Dan Spivey, though the two received nowhere near the push that the first incarnation did. Rotunda would enjoy success in the late 80s NWA WCW, before returning to WWE in 1991 as IRS. The father of both Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas works for the company today as a backstage producer, a role that he's held since 2006. Nikolai Volkoff. With Cold War tensions still at a high level, WrestleMania took place 8 months before the release of Rocky IV, WWE executed a title switch that was sure to garner intense heat. The team known as the US Express dropped their tag team titles to a duo established as being quite nefarious, one half of which was the Soviet national anthem singing Volkoff. Volkoff would remain a part of the business for more than 30 years following the first WrestleMania, while also working as a code enforcement officer in Baltimore County, Maryland. Volkoff would pass away in July 2018 at the age of 70. The Iron Sheik. 1 year removed from dropping the WWE Championship to Hulk Hogan in one of the most important matches in wrestling history, Sheik remained a recognizable figure on company programming, still mining from the foreign baddie shtick that brought him wrestling fame. Along with Volkoff, Sheik captured the tag titles here, but would only hold them for a shade under 3 months before dropping them back to the US Express that June. Now retired and living in Fayetteville, Georgia, Sheik would gain a different sort of notoriety post-retirement through a number of profane and undeniably hilarious statements made during many shoot interviews. Big John Studd. The mighty and towering Studd laid claim to being pro wrestling's only true giant, which in large part set the stage for his appearance at the first WrestleMania, putting up $15,000 in a special body slam challenge. Studd would go on to win the 1989 Royal Rumble match in what would functionally be his last hurrah as a professional wrestler. In the years that followed, Studd would battle both liver cancer and Hodgkin's disease, enduring several rounds of chemotherapy, but to no avail. Studd ultimately succumbed to his illness in March 1995 at the age of 47, nearly 10 years to the day after working the inaugural WrestleMania. Andre the Giant. Andre collected that $15,000 bounty on WrestleMania Sunday, slamming Studd to the canvas in a match where Andre wagered his own career. Though physically deteriorating by 1987, Andre would wrestle his most remembered bout against Hulk Hogan at the Pontiac Silverdome in the main event of WrestleMania 3. Professional wrestling's all-time greatest giant would pass away in Paris in January 1993, dying in his sleep of congestive heart failure at the age of 46. A mere paragraph of words could never do justice to Andre's importance, celebrity, or legacy, but in short, he is unquestionably one of the greatest stars that the business has ever known. Leilani Kai. The defending women's champion had captured the gold the previous month at the MTV special The War to Settle the Score. Her reign would not last long, as she would be defeated in the semi-main event of WrestleMania. Kai would go on to reign alongside Judy Martin as WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, the Glamour Girls, before making one last WWE appearance at WrestleMania 10, losing to Alundra Blaze. Additional note, Kai was the only person to wrestle at both Manias 1 and 10, both emanating from MSG. Kai would remain an active wrestler well into her 50s throughout the 2010s and still takes bookings for ringside, autograph, and promotional appearances. Wendy Richter. Joined at the hip with pop music icon Cyndi Lauper, Richter enjoyed enviable fame and success at the forefront of the rock and wrestling connection. After dropping the women's title to Kai at the aforementioned War to Settle the Score, Richter regained the gold at WrestleMania before jubilantly celebrating with Lauper afterward. Richter would be drummed out of WWE later that year in what's known as the original Screwjob, and her wrestling celebrity would never reach the same heights. Outside of wrestling, Richter took up many different occupational avenues, including real estate and physical therapy, and has even competed in dog shows, well, her dog has, including the prestigious Westminster Kennel Club dog show. Paul Orndorff. Mr. Wonderful is the answer to the trivia question, who was pinned in the main event of the first WrestleMania? Indeed, an errant shot to the noggin from Cowboy Bob Orton's forearm cast laid out the conceited muscle man, and would serve as the conduit for his forthcoming babyface turn. Orndorff would turn back heel again in 1986, double-crossing Hulk Hogan in an angle that drew millions for subsequent matches across North America between the two. Orndorff would defeat lymph node cancer in 2011, but still reportedly battles health issues associated with the illness. Rowdy Roddy Piper. Gorilla Monsoon atoned countless times during the first WrestleMania that what we were seeing was a happening, and when Piper made his entrance at the back of a bagpipe procession, Gorilla was right. We were witnessing the birth of the custom WrestleMania entrance. Piper may have been a loathsome heel in 1985, but his increasing fame would write the babyface turn for him the following year. The Hot Rod would tackle Hollywood while also remaining ever present in professional wrestling, always the colourful and unpredictable orator. Piper would suddenly pass away in August 2015, the result of an embolism-related heart attack. The cheerfully controversial Piper was only 61. Mr. T. When one thinks of pop culture figures that were firmly entrenched in those neon-hued 1980s, the menacing grimace, chiseled physique, and gruff demeanor of the mohawked portrayer of Clubber Lang and B.A. Baracus immediately springs to mind. Mr. T's quotable catchphrases and larger-than-life personality lent itself well to professional wrestling, and was an ideal tag team partner for a fellow boisterous muscle man in the Hulkster. Mr. T's unique and distinct celebrity still lends itself to occasional commercial spots and guest appearances, as he remains recognizable to several generations of consumers. Hulk Hogan. The non-outsider face of the rock and wrestling era may not have defended the WWE Championship on the show, but he deservedly took center stage, scoring the winning pinfall on Orndorff, sending the Garden crowd into a frenzy beneath the thumping strains of Eye of the Tiger. For nearly a decade after, Hogan would remain the frontman for a WWE that would continue to ascend to great heights, and then tumble down as the fad faded due to changing times and some troubling scandals. Hogan remains connected to pro wrestling as a cultural icon to this day, even if his public image may never overcome regrettable comments he'd been caught making years ago. But tarnished or not, Hulk Hogan remains a name indelibly interwoven with not only professional wrestling, but WrestleMania. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. You can follow us on Twitter at Cultaholic. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.